Story 1. I just saw a recent post on wedding shaming where a mother let her 3 children run wild, circling around the newlyweds during their first dance and did not stop them. They ruined the first dance and special moment, so I can see why child-free weddings are a trend. Story 2. My wedding was child-free. It was exactly what we wanted, and it was great. The parents of the children were grateful. They had to get a babysitter, but that meant they got to relax and enjoy the romance of the wedding without worrying about the children for the night. If anyone has an issue with the rule, they can decline going to your wedding. The people who need to be there will be there, and those who object are better off not attending. Story 3. Nothing wrong with it. I personally love little kids jumping around the dance floor, but I only had 3 elementary-aged kids to invite. If everyone in my life had kids and there were a mob of 40 toddlers, I would probably opt to be child-free too. In high school, I was hired to babysit at a wedding. I brought a friend for backup, and they rented us a hotel room above the reception. The couple had a lot of nieces and nephews, so they just told their siblings that childcare was covered. Most of the little ones went to the ceremony, came up to rest during cocktail hour, joined their parents for dinner, then came back up for the rest of the reception. It was a perfect balance and probably what we would have done if we had more kids in attendance. Story 4. As a parent, I say do what you want. I get it, but don't act surprised if people cannot then go. When my eldest was very young, a friend had a child-free wedding and acted as if I had spat on his mother's grave when I would not leave my baby with a stranger. Story 5. It is your wedding, and there is nothing wrong with wanting it child-free. On the other hand, you have to give grace to those who cannot attend if their children cannot come. I am personally very excited for children to be at my wedding. Story 6. Child-free weddings are an interesting concept to me. I was born in the 1960s and do not remember young children ever attending weddings. It seemed a tacit agreement that younger kids were not quite ready for such a long day that required them to be on their best behavior for a sustained amount of time. Has this changed? Story 7. That is entirely up to the bride and groom. As for if I get married, I do not care. I will leave that up to my theoretical bride. Story 8. In our culture, weddings are large celebrations with hundreds of people. Children run around dancing in big groups and enjoying themselves. It is lovely. If someone does not want children at their wedding, they should not be upset if some people choose not to attend. Story 9. I think childless weddings are fine, but I personally would not make a fuss if there was a family member or a friend who was in a bind and had a child that they did not have anywhere else to take. I would make exceptions for sure. Story 10. Totally understand why people have child-free weddings, especially the very expensive and fancy ones. Children can be loud, messy, unpredictable, and extremely distracting. Personally, not for me. My wedding wasn't fancy or overly extravagant. My husband and I mainly wanted a big party for the people we love, including all the nieces, nephews, little cousins, and so on. I think when someone has a child-free wedding, they need to be understanding of people who cannot or will not come. People with children who are invited also need to be understanding and not ask if their child can be an exception for any reason. Story 11. We had children at our wedding, and the parents expressed gratitude that their kids were invited. However, to each their own, and it depends on the vibe you are going for. Story 12. I fully support them, though the couple should not be surprised or upset if that means people will not go. I did not have a child-free wedding myself, but that was because there were not enough potential children coming for it to have been a huge issue, and it worked out entirely. My cousin was pregnant during my engagement, and I realized her son would only be 3 months old at the time of my wedding. I am not a parent, but 3 months felt really early to leave a baby with a sitter, and I did not want to put that on her. My partner had a cousin with 2 kids, 6 and 3, from out of state, so we figured they would not come if we made it child-free. Then we had friends with 2 kids, 5 and 1, and another friend with a son, 5. Our friends immediately told us they would not be bringing their kids, so that left just the 6-year-old, 3-year-old, and 3-month-old. It was not worth making it child-free when it basically already was. Then, his cousin's family got sick right before the wedding and were no longer coming. In the end, the only child in attendance at our not even child-free wedding was the 3-month-old. Story 13. It's the couple's choice and their money. It's that simple. Can't get a sitter? RSVP, sorry. Can't come. It's literally that simple. I had a child-free wedding, except I made one exception. An exceptionally well-behaved close relative who we knew would not be the one screaming during the vows or knocking over the cake because we understood how they were and how they were raised. I know some people think, yes, I'm the exception, sometimes while their child is the problem child, but I wouldn't have made an exception for them except that they were very close family. I understand that we married young, most guests didn't have children, and if you have a later wedding, many will. There's a difference in demographics. Just get a sitter for the night or grandparents or whatever. Or don't come. It's not that hard. Story 14. I know this is Reddit, so I already know the downvotes are coming, but I hate them. Two things first. 1. I don't have children, so it's not personal. 2. I respect the right of someone to choose to have one. But I think weddings are about families and children belong there. Furthermore, I don't like the increase in child-free public spaces in general. How are children supposed to learn how to be adults if we don't allow them to get the experience they need growing up? Granted, some parents are not great, but that's why children need to be in public spaces. Consequences will naturally occur. Also, I hear the argument that parents love an excuse to go out without their children, but that's great for a date night, not a day-to-weekend-long event you may even have to travel for. Most of my friends who are parents hate the hassle of having to find a sitter. They don't love having a reason to. Also, children should see their parents cut loose and enjoy themselves. Healthy adults do that. Children should see it. If someone is a sloppy drunk who models terrible behavior, that is not a problem for a child-free wedding to solve. Anyway, I would never bring my hypothetical children to a child-free wedding, but I probably just would not go. Story 15. Child-free weddings are much more enjoyable to me. There is way less chaos and interruption. If my own wedding were a conventional one, it would have been child-free. Story 16. I understand why people do it, but for me, weddings are about two families coming together. The children should be there. Story 17. When I got married, our wedding was not child-free. We both had nieces and nephews we wanted there. That was our decision. Other people can do what they want, and they should not be judged for it. Story 18. We did it. We didn't have the finances for everyone to bring their child, such as catering and space, and we wanted to have alcohol, conversations, and a calm ambience. The only person who complained was my mother-in-law, but she complains about everything and did not end up coming to our wedding because there was no beach and it was not a place she would like to spend her vacation. We had a small wedding in Costa Rica. However, she spent the next few years talking about buying a place in Costa Rica and whether we would split it with her, despite her never having been there. Make it make sense. Story 19. My dad got married again when my child was 3 months old. He told me it was child-free, so I had a friend watch my child. Turned out only my child was not invited. My child was the only child on my dad's side, so it was just my dad being selfish. Story 20. I completely understand couples who choose this. I have attended child-free weddings. I cannot answer whether I would do it myself because I have children. As a mother, I might feel a bit disappointed that I cannot share a joyous event like a wedding with my children. But that is all. I would respect the wishes of the bride and groom, not think any less of them, and move on. I did the same when my best friend got married and asked me to be her witness. Story 21. If that is what the bride and groom agree on, it is their wedding and they or their parents are paying for it. Story 22. I think weddings are a family event, so it is important for the children in the family to attend. I attended a wedding recently with my toddler, and it became clear very quickly that I had to take her out before she became a nuisance. So off we went. Her father stayed behind as it was his friend getting married. I believe that as long as parents are responsible, it is not an issue. We actually told our guests not to worry about their babies making noise and ended up with a wonderful comedic moment when our nephew seemed to express disgust at the idea of us living together forever. That being said, if someone wants a child-free wedding, they should go for it. However, they need to be understanding that some people, potentially important ones, may not attend as a result. Story 23. I did it, but mostly because there was only one child in both our circles combined, and he was a pest whose parents did not care to train him. Story 24. My family has always had children at events, so for me, it is the norm. I would be happy to have children at my wedding. I did a small secret wedding, though, if I ever have a big reception later. That being said, I totally understand why people do not want children at weddings and similar events, and I respect that. I just likely would not do it myself, as I am used to children being at these gatherings. Story 25. I would never do it, as I see weddings as a community coming together, and children are an important part of that. However, if others want a child-free wedding, that is certainly their choice. I would happily attend and wish them my best. Story 26. We have decided to be child-free forever. I have even undergone a vasectomy to show my commitment. Therefore, I cannot imagine that we would want children at our wedding. Story 27. Absolutely. It is the only time you get to say, I do, without having a young child asking, but why? Every 5 minutes. Story 28. For me personally, it's the merging of two families, and families include children. During the ceremony, most kids can stay quiet for a few minutes. If they cannot, it is up to the parents to slip out of the room or to have a side area where younger kids can play, supervised by older cousins or other extended family members who may not be particularly interested in the event but are present. Reception parties, dances, and kids are great in the mix. I have attended many weddings with children everywhere. The extended family photos are often a time to bring both old and young together. If someone wants to have some or all of their events without children present, that is fine for them. Story 29. My husband's cousin had a child-free wedding, and I really enjoyed the all-inclusive resort where people go around handing you random alcoholic drinks, and you can easily ask for drinks without being checked for identification. I don't think a child-free wedding is the right option if either the bride or groom has minor children. But if neither of them has minor children, then child-free weddings are great. As for whether I would do it myself, as I said, it would depend on whether I or my husband has children at the time of the wedding. This is all hypothetical at this point anyway. Story 30. I think they are great. It all depends on the situation, such as people getting married. To each their own. I had children at our wedding but can see the appeal of not including them and keeping it adults only. Story 31. I want a small wedding celebration. If I were having an extravagant multi-day event on the other side of the country, I would agree that it would be difficult for my guests to find babysitters for that long. However, an evening at a local venue seems reasonable enough. Story 32. Yes. I don't want little children running everywhere or screaming. I don't care how well-behaved your child is. Either don't come or get a sitter. I don't care which. All these parents insisting that their kids must attend, or they won't come. Okay, have fun that day. The bridal couples need to be okay with people not coming because of it. It's completely reasonable to assume if you have a newborn and they're not invited, you're likely staying home. Story 33. I have a child and support child-free weddings, especially for children under 5. The day is about the bride and groom, not the family or friends. Sometimes you have to miss things as a parent, and that is okay. If it really matters to you, you will arrange childcare so you can be present. Story 34. Yes, I fully support and understand why people do it, but I do not understand those who get upset when guests with children choose not to attend. I suggested to a friend who seriously contemplated a child-free wedding to hire a portable soft play and disco for children, and to hire some childminders for the wedding day until late afternoon, then have it child-free in the evening. Story 35. Yes, I would. A simple ban on young children. I don't think teenagers or preteens would be an issue. A wedding is an adult event. I would want to do it to give parents at least one night to enjoy themselves and participate in adult social activities. A glass of wine, a nice dinner, meeting other adults without the interruption of children, dancing, engaging in conversation with other wedding guests, celebrating the couple, and meeting new people you have mutual friends with. That's the whole point of a wedding. Story 36. The only people who do not like child-free weddings are unhappy parents. Fortunately, I do not have any children, and if or when I get married, children are not an option. Story 37. Ours was child-free. with the exception of ring bearers and flower girls, but they were not at the reception. We loved it. Guests loved it. Family loved it. Many of our friends have children, as does my family. Children require a lot of care during the night and can be quite distracting, especially when weddings are all-day events and can be long. They loved being able to relax, not worry about their children, get involved, and party until 2 a.m. for a change. With children, it is often 11 p.m., and we have to get them to bed. This means many of our closest friends and family cannot celebrate with us fully because the children are getting cranky. Additionally, it slightly reduced the cost by not having to pay for children's meals. Our guests appreciated being able to focus on us and themselves for the evening. They enjoyed not having to babysit or watch over their children at the wedding. Story 38. I have no particular objection, and they are understandable if you live somewhere with strict licensing laws. That said, we did not have them for our wedding nor for the renewal of vows 25 years later. Story 39. Depends on the cultural context. At my church, it would be bizarre and unexpected, perhaps even frowned upon, to have a wedding without children. But at secular weddings, I kind of expect it. If it is nearby and I can get a sitter, I would enjoy it. Even for church weddings, I like having a sitter for the reception, but for the ceremony, they enjoy being there and watching the wedding. Story 40. My brother and sister-in-law had a child-free wedding. It was in an amazing location that was completely unsafe for children, so no children were in attendance. It was incredible and beautiful, and I got to get pretty drunk and silly without worrying that someone's unattended child would spill juice on me, scream during the vows, or roll a toy car onto the dance floor. Story 41. We did not. We actually had a children's room with 3 nannies, games, and video games so parents could bring their children there and enjoy the wedding if they wanted. If someone wants to have a kid-free wedding, it does not bother me at all. Story 42. I had a child-free wedding except for the 2 children who were part of the wedding. No one objected to this at all. I think it depends on the wedding and the environment. My wedding was formal and not appropriate for children. However, I have attended more casual weddings or events with a kids' table where having children around was wonderful. I am personally happy with my choice to include just the 2 children. Story 43. I wouldn't do it, but that's because I break out in hives at the idea of getting married again. I learned that lesson once and do not need to repeat it. As to child-free weddings, I think they are perfectly fine. I love my children dearly, but I don't expect people to put up with them when they are bored and overstimulated. That said, I think it was kind to offer childcare at your wedding so that people you love who have young children can attend, especially if they are coming from out of town. I also think it is unreasonable to get mad at someone for not coming to your wedding if it is child-free. Story 44. We had a play area for children and hired 2 people to supervise them in a separate area of the venue. Nothing beats children dancing though. Story 45. Last time I went to a wedding where children were not invited. The bride was pregnant. Depending on your interpretation of the stages of pregnancy, she may have bypassed the rules. Story 46. If I get married, I would probably say no children at the ceremony, but I would want all the children at the reception. I am Puerto Rican and Black, and children have always been included for the most part. I cannot imagine not having them there, but that is just me. Story 47. Child-free weddings are fine. Just don't be upset if your friends with children cannot come. Personally, I think having children at weddings is half the fun. They are hilarious on the dance floor. I have a large family, and children at weddings have always been the norm. My cousin recently had a child-free wedding and was upset when half the family did not attend because of it. Story 48. I think they make sense. Most kids cannot sit still that long without absolutely bursting at the seams. Not to mention, wedding ceremonies are boring. I do not care what anyone says. Very few children are going to be entertained enough to stay still and quiet for one of the most important moments of your life. I have been to several weddings where children were not allowed at the ceremony but were allowed at the reception. This caused parents to miss the ceremony, but they were still able to celebrate the marriage with their entire family at the reception. Story 49. Once upon a time, children were taught how to behave in public, and this was not much of an issue. Nowadays, with parents letting their children run wild, I think child-free weddings are acceptable. If I were to attend a wedding, especially at night, I would prefer it to be child-free. Story 50. I think it's okay, and there is nothing wrong with it. It is their day, so having children around should not demand attention or cause distractions. Story 51. Personally, I do not believe that children belong at weddings unless they are the bride and groom. No, I did not have children present at my wedding. The cost of a wedding is very expensive, and kids' meals cost just as much as adult meals. Also, everyone is drinking and trying to relax while talking to family, friends, and coworkers. Parents would not be able to enjoy the wedding if they had to watch their children. Parents deserve to have a child-free night out. Story 52. I highly recommend no children at weddings. The only time there are usually children at weddings is when the couple or their immediate family have many children. Story 53. I would only attend a child-free wedding if I were ever able to go to one. My immune system is very weak, and children unfortunately carry and harbor the most germs. Story 54. My wedding 30 years ago was child-free. I caught flack from the families, but I did not care. My husband's family had about a dozen kids under 10, and I just did not want children running around. No regrets. Once my children were little, I loved child-free weddings. Yes, please. Story 55. I am currently working on it. Specifically, we have a 16 and up rule, because my fiancé has one cousin under 21 who will be 17 at the time of our wedding. He is a lovely young man whom we want to be there. As for why no kids, there are several reasons. It would add about 20 more people to our guest list, and my caterer does not differentiate between adult and children's meals. They are not worth $50 per plate, not including appetizers and cake. I am also using some of my personal items as decorations that, to be honest, are toys. I do not want them to be treated like toys, especially not roughly, as children often do. Story 56. Gentle and permissive parenting have resulted in the rise of child-free weddings. This is the reason I closed my daycare after 17 years of success. Parents refuse to discipline their children and provide consequences for bad behavior. Not only do they fail as parents, but they also criticize daycare providers and teachers for disciplining the children. No one wants to be around undisciplined, entitled, and unruly children, especially on a very expensive special day. It is sad because children can add so much to life. Story 57. I'm Asian. We do not leave children with strangers for an extended time. The answer is never. This only works with lots of family friends who do not have children. I have been to many weddings with children and have never seen an issue. Parents need to parent. Story 58. Then they criticize the teachers. They do not want them to be on vacation. They enroll them in camps and not even allow attendance at weddings anymore. That is because the teachers have been spoiled, and the critics will not stop bothering them. Throughout our lives, we children attended weddings while the adults had a great time. We managed it, and the adults did not even realize that we were there enjoying it too. Story 59. Kids are part of the family, and I think it is important they are included and learn how to behave. Not everything is for them, and the world is not one big playground. Sometimes you need to dress up and act appropriately. It will not hurt to learn to sit still for half an hour in church and use manners at the reception. My children can do that. My nieces and nephews can do that. I want them there. On the other hand, I am fine with other people doing whatever they want. If I cannot be separated from my baby, I will stay home with her. Story 60. I don't like them. Children are as much a part of the family as anyone and should be included in the family celebration. It is also inconvenient for parents who need to arrange babysitting for what can be a long day or, worse, a long weekend. I have been to 10 or 15 weddings, and the children always bring joy to the occasion. I think there is a fairly large United States and other countries split as well. Many people in the United States think parties with alcohol are no place for those under 21. In the United Kingdom, that is less of a concern, and I went to many weddings as a child, having a great time with my intoxicated relatives. Story 61. If my children were not invited, I was not going. It was not a negotiation. They are a part of me. Metaphorically speaking, it would be like telling someone their legs are not allowed to come. My friends are a close group and have always been a part of my children's lives. In all the weddings I have attended, they only missed one. They missed it because they had more important obligations and the wedding was across the country. Story 62. I would rather invite 1,000 children without their often entitled, overbearing parents who do not parent properly. Story 63. The best compromise I have seen is no children unless parents have to travel to attend. This limits the number of children in attendance without adding extra stress for out-of-towners. Story 64. As long as they are not excluding infants, which is another way that new mothers are kept home and away from society, I have no strong opinion. I would never have a child. Children at weddings are amusing, but there are venues where they are less enjoyable, and there is nothing wrong with someone else's personal preference. Story 65. Internally, I dislike the idea of excluding children because I believe children should be included in life's big events. Recently, I attended a wedding where my kids were not invited, but my baby was. It was more about seating than being child-free. It was nice not having to track down a 2- and 4-year-old or make sure they ate. This was only possible because the event was local, and my wife's parents could babysit. Otherwise, I would have had to go alone. Story 66. My children are 46, 44, and 38, and I do not want them at my house if I ever have one. My grandchildren, of course, can eat cake and run around until they are as energetic as kites and then pass out. After that, I get to send them home. Story 67. I really don't understand them. Weddings are not a time for forgettable perfection where nothing goes wrong. I want the chaos. You want the kids being kids. You want the drunk uncles being the drunk uncles. Those are the stories you tell and pass down. Story 68. No, a wedding is for family and usually children are part of that. I also always had fun at weddings when I was a child, and I am not evil and do not want others to miss out on that. Story 69. The worst decision anyone could make is to say child-free. When people say child-free, they often irrationally think kids will ruin their wedding. That does not happen. Weddings are about family. To ban those with kids who cannot get a babysitter is really ignorant and a mistake. It is a bad way to start your own family. When you have kids one day, you will regret being part of the child-free trend when you are not able to go to someone's wedding. You will realize how insulting it is to not allow someone to bring their breastfeeding infant, which does not create any problems anyway. Kids that can walk have fun at weddings and receptions. My wife wanted a child-free wedding. I talked her out of it, and the wedding was perfect, as was the reception. Having kids dancing was extra fun. Ungrateful people say child-free, knowing exactly what parents they are excluding from their wedding. You are telling certain people that they are not really invited. Story 70. Yes, provide childcare during the wedding so people from out of town can bring their children for family to see. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.